Hi there, and finally it's time to update the tier list since currently we are in phase 1 of 1.1 update, and obviously we have a new character being introduced in this update, which is Silverwolf, and of course we simply have to put her in the tier list. Also, since she synergizes with other characters, we have to adjust their tiers too, and also we have a really significant update to Memory of Chaos, where first of all, like the first part of update, we have a new enemies being introduced for this activity, and of course they have their own gimmicks. We want to play around those gimmicks, build our teams to match these strategies, and that's why the tiers are changing. And the second part, we of course have a new Memory of Turbulence, which is some kind of a rule for Memory of Chaos, which also adjusts our team building. I want to be clear here, it's not a Memory of Chaos exclusive tier list. At the same time, I can say that this tier list completely excludes Memory of Chaos because it's still like our main endgame activity. I want it to be somewhere on the middle, make a general tier list which takes into account Memory of Chaos but doesn't make it the most defining factor. So this tier list would be useful for both new players who understand that they won't be able to reach Memory of Chaos at least in 1.1 when this tier list is relevant, and for some more experienced players who already are beating or trying to beat Memory of Chaos and also will be able to get some uses from this video. And also, of course, as any other tier list, I want to warn you, this one is completely subjective. It's just my opinion which I show in this video, so if you don't agree on something about some character or about some tier, then feel free to share that in the comment section. And now let's get to tier list itself. Now it looks like this. Previously it looked like this if we are talking about my tier list, and let's just go through every character and explain why they remain on their position or they have their tiers changed. So starting from Sealy, which is definitely still an SS tier character, what really changed about her if we are talking about Memory of Chaos? First of all, of course, we lost that rule which benefit Hunt and Erudition characters. At the same time, key character in this update is of course Silverwolf, and they combine with Sealy really well. They have same element, and if you're able to build a team where you only have quantum characters and characters which element fits enemy's weakness, you're guaranteed to apply that quantum weakness as additional one, and then only thing you need from Sealy is to deal lots of damage. If you're talking about new bosses, of course they summon some important minions you want to deal with as fast as possible, and Sealy is completely able to do this because again Sealy is not a fully single target character. She can easily deal with some more weak enemies and then immediately turn back to dealing damage to main enemy. This is part of her gimmick. That's why she still remains the strongest single target DPS character, definitely, arguably the strongest overall DPS character, and you can easily invest into her since the next character we're about to get is healing character. There is no problem with her, she will definitely not fall off in the nearest future. If you're talking about Bronya, she is still a really good supportive character, really skill point hungry if you don't have her idle on 1, but if you even have her idle on 0, you can easily use her. She's one of the best harmony characters we currently have in the game. There are few enemies which have wind weakness, and it's really good in both terms when you just want to use characters which fit the enemy's weakness, and of course if you want to use her with Silverwolf, which you can do, but then you will have to really deal with enemies as fast as possible because your team is not that sustained. Talking about sustain, we still have Jeopard in SS tier because he's a really good shielder, the best shielder currently we have in the game. Maybe it will change significantly if we get any other preservation character or maybe even any other abundance character, but for now easily SS tier. There are lots of enemies which are weak to ice still in the game, so really good character. The only problem about him might be is you don't really want to use him like for overworld exploration, for maybe just some farming because he's a bit slow, but if you're talking about endgame content, easily you can invest into him. Really good character. About Silverwolf, it's really complicated because honestly speaking I want to put her like on top of the S tier. But since now, of course, Memory of Chaos, both rules of Memory of Chaos and bosses of Memory of Chaos are really weak to Silverwolf, and you really want to use her, then let's, at least for now, put her in SS tier. About good sides of her, I don't even think I have to talk because everyone at this point knows it. But if you're talking about weak points, first of all, you want to use her when your main DPS character's element doesn't fit enemy. And if you're, for example, are fighting an enemy which is already weak to Quantum, and your team previously looked like Sealy, Bronya, for example, let it be Natasha, and Jeopard, you don't really need Silverwolf there. And for overall exploration, for farming, even for some regular bosses you're dealing with, you don't really need Silverwolf. But if you're talking about two teams, then it's completely different, because there, of course, we might have characters we build up which don't meet the elements we want to use, and then Silverwolf will really come in clutch, and we will want to use her. But again, to what extent? Because if in future we get enough characters to actually deal with everyone by using the proper elements, what's the point of Silverwolf? And if we don't summon and get those characters, it will be really hard to build those teams which guarantee us to apply some specific elements. That's why I want to say that she is not like a god tier, like above SSS plus tier, but still a really good character. If you're talking about her not in context of applying additional weakness, she's just the strongest Nihility character we currently have in the game. She deals lots of damage, she applies additional debuffs, she removes defense from the enemy. Really good character. But if you're talking about weaknesses, don't really consider this as her main point, because she's a really good combination of a Nihility character which at the same time can apply those weaknesses. Now getting to S tier, we start from Genuine, which is a solid S tier character. Really strong. I hope you understand that if we are talking not about SS tier, doesn't mean that S tier characters immediately become D tier. He is the strongest AoE character we currently have in the game. He is second best DPS character we currently have in the game, and keep in mind that for Memory of Chaos we still need two teams, so we'll anyway need two DPS characters. Also, he synergizes with Silverwolf really well too, because if you have Bailu, you can just build team of 3 lightning characters and 1 quantum character, and it will be really easy to break the enemies. What is his, we can say, problem why he is not SS tier? He still is an AoE character, and if you're talking about bosses, of course, we want to kill all those summonable minions, but we still need to deal with the boss, and we can say that Genuine deals with bosses on the same level as Sealy. But both these characters are really good DPS characters. If you're talking about just overworld exploration, I think they are on the same level. If you're talking about farming, definitely Genuine is even better. But again, S tier is not bad. Talking about wealth, of course, in current situation where we revolve around debuffs, we really want to use Nihility characters. I might even say over Harmony characters in some situations. That's why wealth is a solid S tier. We can even use Harmony characters in combination with Nihility characters, but then we might lack some survivability, but it's not a problem for Weld, because he can just push enemies back in their actions, he can slow them down, so anyway they won't deal as much damage, and you will be able to deal with them a bit faster because they just skip their natural turns. And in future he might be a really good character for imaginary teams, so it's not like a temporary investment just to beat this exact Memory of Chaos. That's why it's a really great character overall. Talking about Tinyun, exactly for the reason why Welt is really good for now, Tinyun fell off from SS tier to S tier because she's a Harmony character, and we now prefer to use any Nihility character, and at the same time we got Silverwolf, which partly took over the place of Tinyun, because she not only provides attack increase and, for example, can recharge the ultimate, she also can generate lots of skill points, because her main purpose is you apply something and then you just use your basic attacks, and now Silverwolf does exactly the same. I'm not saying she's bad, she can act really well in team of 3 lightning units, which we can currently build. It's like one of the not that many mono teams we currently have in the game, because if you're talking about Imaginary, Quantum, Wind, we still don't have those teams. If you're talking about Lightning, this might be like the strongest mono team we currently have. Talking about Yanqing, honestly speaking, if you can't provide good protection to Yanqing, he becomes like on the level of Shusheng and Denheng. But if you can build your tank or shielding character properly, then of course you will be able to protect Yanqing, and then he will be easily a really strong DPS character overall. And for Memory of Chaos, if of course enemy is weak to ice, or if you are able to use Silver Wolf with Yanqing and apply that additional ice weakness. Though he is not that used, so maybe I'm mistaken about him. I honestly really love using him on my free-to-play account, and also I'm thinking of investing into him on my main account. But for now I understand that since his competition is Silly herself, of course genuine to some extent because they are still both DPS characters, of course not that many people want to invest into him because they already invested into two of their main DPS. Talking about Fire MC, of course, this is a really good tank character which can also provide shields. Here you have to understand that this character is a tank which provides shields, while Jeopard or March 7 is a shielding character which can tank. And this is really big difference, because if Jeopard you in theory can use a sub healing character or even main healing character, but instead of healing you just use shields, Fire MC can tank by themselves, but can't actually provide enough shields to, for example, save your team from AoE damage. That's why it's not that strong as Jeopard, but again, it's completely free-to-play character, which you can even E5 for now. That's why if you haven't invested into them, I really recommend doing this, because again, there are so many situations where you can use them as tank, as just breaker, like some supportive character, or just put them into the team when you need to have some character which fits enemy weakness to apply proper weakness with Silver Wolf. Talking about Bilo and Natasha, these are still both in S tier for me, because I think they are really good for different scenarios, as it was before, because if you're talking about mono lighting team, of course you want to use Bilo. If you're talking about enemies which deal lots of damage and don't really apply that much important debuffs you want to remove, we are talking about Bilo. If we are overall talking about dealing like with Memory of Chaos on the highest stages, we want both of them, that's why they are same tier. If you're talking about more free-to-play option, if you're talking about removing debuffs, and this is really important for now, because we have Kafka, for example, in Memory of Chaos, then of course Natasha will be better. I think we can only tell which of these characters is better when Locha comes out and when we have some time to use them, because Locha, of course, is more, we can say, type of Natasha, more aggressive character. It's not that much healing, it's not, for example, about reviving the character, and it depends on the game what style would be better for us, because in theory, in future, we might get only the enemies which hit like a truck, at the same time not applying debuffs at all, and then there won't be any point in removing those debuffs or wasting the efficiency on having removed debuffs in our skill. Instead, it would be much better, for example, to use Bilo. Or it might be the opposite, it will be completely useless to use Bilo because she provides too much healing, and since we can combine healing or abundance characters with preservation, then we will just not see any uses of Bilo, because we can use, for example, Locha or Natasha with Jeopard or any other preservation character. Talking about A tier, Pela here only for one reason, because like if we put her in S tier, it would be uncomparable, because at this point we would say that Welt is same level as Pela. If you have, for example, E6 Pela, I think she is already like bottom of S tier, but honestly speaking, for now she is like top of A tier, because of course she can remove buffs from the enemy. This is a thing which Locha also will have, and now enemies in Memory of Chaos especially already revolve around the debuffs or buffs, I'm sorry, that they apply. That's why using Pela is really good. Also, like just simply applying debuffs on the enemy is already good. Defense shred is really good too, so really good character overall. If you're now in the situation where you need to build up supportive characters for your second team from Memory of Chaos, Pela might be a really good option, maybe even over Tinian, but again, depending on what team you have as your main team for overall exploration, what other characters you have on the account, but overall, Pela is really good. Also, she is involved into second mono team we currently have in the game, which is an ice team. We don't have any other proper teams. Of course, we can call Himeko main character and Asta another like mono team, but it's not that used. Talking about Clara, again, a really good tank character. tank characters can't compare to shielding characters because they still are weaker, they can't protect your allies from AoE damage, but still you can use her, especially if you don't have Jeopard, for example. Then she might be a really good option also with combination with Yanqing. Again, those characters both are like general 5 stars. It's really hard to get both of them, but if you were lucky to, you can use them. Again, I'm not saying that Clara is bad character for now, but we definitely can't call her the strongest or one of the strongest reliable DPS characters. That might be some kind of a problem, because in future it might change. We haven't seen any destruction or physical beneficial rules in Memory of Chaos, and we definitely are about to get those maybe in some future updates, and then maybe everyone who has Clara will definitely use her. Talking about these characters, they haven't changed that much. Of course, we have some power-ups, for example, for Shusheng, because you now can combine her with Silverwolf, and they both can make like a break team where you always break the enemy and then get all the benefit from Shusheng's kit. Same with Danhan, he got some power-up just because enemies in Memory of Chaos usually are weak to wind. At least there are few enemies which are weak to wind and you want to kill them. And of course, at the same time, Dan Heng, even though he is a hunt character, can apply some debuffs, so this is of course really synergizes well with current rule. Talking about these three, I don't think something changed for them a lot. If you're talking about Asta, of course, it's a bit easier to break the enemies, because if previously you had to use Asta only against fire weak enemies, now you can randomly apply fire weakness and it won't be bad because you have Asta, for example, and you can easily break them. Also, she might become really strong in the situation where we get a strong fire character, or we just have situation where Himiko actually will become a really strong unit. And to be completely objective, honestly, Himiko already got these positive dynamics, and due to new Memory of Chaos, we can say that she's a bit more preferable than she before was. But honestly, I don't think that we already can easily put her in A tier or maybe even higher. I think that for now she will still remain B tier. Of course, the main argument is she is already becomes useful in Memory of Chaos, and in future it might change, but for now only 6% of people are using her in Memory of Chaos. And you might say, but at the same time, for example, Yanqing and Danhang have not that higher usage ratio, but you have them in the higher tiers. But again, for these characters, the main arguments are like overworld, free farming, maybe just some campaign going through. While with Himiko, her main argument is of course Memory of Chaos, but she only has around 6% usage ratio there. That's why I'm keeping her in B tier, but again, it's completely subjective. If you already invested into this character, you can easily use her. But we are still like in a soft late game where you can't easily invest into every character you have on your account. That's why you have to save up resources, you have to manage the resources you have a bit more efficiently. That's why I think she's still a B tier. Talking about Chinche, if you actually, like, there are two conditions when Chinche actually becomes A tier or maybe even like S- tier. First one, if you have really like at least few of those eidolons, and at the same time you are lucky, because this is still a really important factor for her. If you're unlucky, she might be even worse than Himiko in terms of damage, but if you can actually get any luck with this character, of course, her damage skyrockets and she becomes actually useful. At the same time, we can say that you can get rid of that luck by actually restarting the stage if you're talking about Memory of Chaos, but with this thing I already suffered a bit with Silverwolf, because if you are talking about like restarting the whole stage just to get a bit better RNG for some particular characters, there might be a situation where you are using this character in your second team and then you, for example, spend 5 minutes beating like the first part of the stage, and then you get to the second one and immediately have to forfeit only because of this character. I'm skeptical towards this. If you are completely okay with that, if you again have eidolons for this character, you can easily use her. She's an actual A tier, but for me, only because of RNG she's B tier. Again, it's subjective. If you don't care about RNG that much, or if you're lucky, then feel free to use her. About Sampo, he doesn't have that much uses currently, nothing that much changed for him. Again, in future he will actually have any uses, and maybe even a lot of those, because we might have additional rules which will maybe even turn him on without Kafka, so he'll become an actually really strong debuffer and breaker. We of course now have that rule which gets us additional benefits from debuffs, but I can say that it's already enough to use Sampo every time. And for these characters nothing changed that much, that's why we're just keeping them, so like nothing really to discuss about them, everything is already set. So this is the tier list. Again, if you think that I'm mistaken somewhere, feel free to comment about that in the comment section. I hope it was useful for you. Again, of course, everything might significantly change even on 1.1 phase 2 with new Locha, especially towards healing characters, and maybe it will touch abundance characters. But for now, from my perspective, only in terms of my opinion, the tier list looks like this. Thanks for your kind attention and see you soon.